Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome dear learners. This is a video for the subject of education for the course of Bachelors of Education and for the paper of Educational Technology Part 2. This module will be discussing about the communication and interaction, and the present lecture will be on the types of communication. This lecture is being recorded by Dr. Iram Khan. The course coordinator and the presenter of this video is Dr. Iram Khan from Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. The academic expert or the reviewer of this video is Professor Jesse Abraham from Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. This video is produced under the project DTH Swayam Prabha Channels of Ministry of Education, Government of India. Hello dear students, I am Dr. Iram Khan, Assistant Professor at Institute of Advanced Studies in Education, Faculty of Education, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi. Today we will be discussing about communication and interaction, and in this lecture the focus will be on the types of communication. Let us start the discussion first with the objectives. The objectives of this session are to discuss the various situations of making communication and to elaborate the different types of communication along with their significance respectively. So first of all, let us see that what are the different type of situations in which communication can happen. There may occur a variety of situations or environments in the process of communication where a lot of individuals are involved, or maybe one individual is interacting with another at a time. So whenever there is interaction, we can say that some sort of communication is happening. Let us see that how we can categorize or group the different types of communications with respect to the situation of the communication. The first one which I wish to discuss here is one-to-one communication. What do we mean by one-to-one communication? Basically, the one-to-one communication takes place between two individuals. Most of our day-to-day informal and formal communications which occur in the daily life can be categorized under this form. And we can cite an example when a father is talking to his son or his daughter, or maybe a teacher is talking to one of the students. So here this is one sort of communication which can be considered as one-to-one communication. The next type of communication can be considered as the small group communication. What exactly it means? The small group communication occurs in both formal and informal ways, and it can happen among the members of small group which can consist of more than two individuals. And let us take the example when the parent, like one of the parent, the father is talking to two of his children, or mother is talking to two of her sisters. So in this way we can say that here small group communication is happening. Maybe when uh, there is a group of children of a family. Let's take the example of 4 or 5 children, and one of the family members, let's take the example of the grandfather. The grandfather is talking to all the children of the family, maybe 4 or 5 children. Then also it can be considered as the small group communication. So this was the second type. Then let us take the example of another, or you can say that let us discuss the next type, which is the large group or public communication. Public communication involves a large number of people or individuals, maybe in a group, and it can be seen when one person is interacting to a large group of people. It is usually conducted in an organized or formal way. Otherwise, if it is not formal, then what will happen? There may be some sort of chaos, and people will not in a position to understand what exactly the person is saying. Let us take the example of this one, the large group or public communication. It can be exemplified as when the teacher, one teacher is in a classroom and she's teaching to a group of students, let's take 50 or 60 students at a time. Or maybe the games teacher is uh, getting some activity done, or maybe any of the teachers is getting some activities done by the students, or maybe the head of the school is interacting with all the students at a time. So this is the example of large group or public communication. The next is organizational or institutional communication. What exactly we mean by this? The organizational communication is carried out within the four walls of different organizations or institutions. Maybe a factory or an industrial establishment, or maybe it can be a government office, or army, or in a hospital, or also in case of a school or college, where any of such type of educational institutions. So whatever interactions are happening inside the organization or the institution, it can be considered as the institutional communication. And we can see that every time in these institutions there is a particular style and functioning of this type of communication, and it is quite formal, systematic, planned and organized. It is having its innate style in which the people who are working inside the this particular organization or institution will be interacting with each other. Then comes the most important, which is considered as mass communication. Mass communication is something where interaction with masses happen. Mass communication can be taken up as a very important part of the systems of communication. The range, field, and application of mass communication is very much wide and extensive. It is carried out through different types of mechanical means, appliances, and mass media, and these can be any of those devices which we are using nowadays, like the radio, television, or we use several, like we go on different platforms and see those videos. We also go to cinema halls and watch movies. There are many film clips which are available even on different social media platforms. We also read books and different literature, newspapers, magazines. There are several other publications, journals. We also go for doing certain sort of networking in the form of emailing with the help of internet, and also internet is helping us out in doing all those teleconferencing and video call conferencing things. And this is happening because of the satellite communication and the transmission process. And here we can see that we don't have any direct face-to-face natural communication between the sender and the receiver. Yet it is the only way to reach the masses with a very meaningful way, and we can impart the meaningful messages which are full of information and education with utmost economy and effectiveness. Any organization or institution or individual can communicate the thoughts of that particular human being or the institution, even these philosophies, the feelings, intentions, and even in case of several programs, we can communicate, we can advertise, we can tell people about that particular program, or regarding anybody else's feeling. And a huge number of individuals or groups within no time lapse will be in a position to get to know what is uh, being communicated. And this is only possible because of the mass media, and it has resulted in the globalization of the humanity. We have seen that now, uh, whatever is happening in one country, the other country knows within no time, and this is because of the globalization of the press and even the expansion of mass media. So in a single moment we can communicate to the masses residing in any corner of the world through the sophisticated modern means, and it has resulted in the development of proper channels for carrying out the task of distance education and fulfilling the duties of providing the required information to those who ask for the need, like who ask for some sort of help or who are in need. So the masses can send their responses to the source through their like to the chat box comments, or they can even email the person who is interacting with the masses. And in this way, even the feedback can be given, and the question answer can also be asked. And in this way, we can find that there are some sort of actions or some sort of interactivity can also be obtained in the mass media. And this is somehow a boon for our culture and for our society. So after all those situations of communication, let us now focus on the classroom communication. Because the purpose of discussion on communication is to see that how the classroom process, the teaching learning process, is having this important aspect of communication at the focal point or at the center. So the small group, which is involving 20 to 50 or 60 students in a class, represents the classroom communication environment of most of our schools. And this can be seen in veracity. You can go for seeing that there are 20 students in one class in one particular school, and in few of the cases you can find that 50 to 60 students are sitting in a class. And both in case of a theory or in a practical class, you can find the same sort of audiences. So classroom communication is mostly carried out through either verbal or through non-verbal means. And we can say that nothing, like both of these means are not going to run in isolation. We always see that if the verbal communication is happening, then also some sort of non-verbal means are going to work. And in this discussion, we will try to understand that what exactly these different means, which are verbal and non-verbal, are all about. So the communication in which we make use of the oral or written form of language is termed as verbal communication. And on the other hand, we can also communicate our feelings and our emotions, our thoughts, uh, whatever we want to express through non-verbal means, without, or maybe at times with, making any use of verbal or written language. Like in case of written language, even we can use some certain signs and symbols, so it will become a kind of non-verbal. Let us just try to see that what exactly these two like broad categories of communication means are. Let us focus on verbal communication. So language is the key here in this case of verbal communication. Each society develops one or more form of languages with spoken or written words for communicating with each other. We can find that whenever we go to one place in our country or to the other, we can find that there are various type of accents, dialects, and certain languages which are being spoken. And in this way, we can say that we have got regular language which is being spoken in different parts of the country, which can be considered as local language, vernacular language, or maybe regional, uh, traditional language, national and international languages. And for this, what exactly for all these languages and all are required? These are all for making communications. So the basic unit of any language are words. So units can be words in any of those cases. If we talk about any of the language, words are going to be the unit. And then the sentences, which are governed by the rules of the grammar, and that grammar will be according to the that particular language. So language can make use of one of the three forms. What are these three forms? The first one is oral, then we have got written, and then the next one is oral and written, both, like the mix of both. So in the oral form, one can communicate one's feelings, thoughts, and intentions to others by the way of speaking. And then the next person is going to listen. So there will be speaking and listening channel. And for this purpose, the sender or the communicator makes use of some precise and distinct sounds, which when the other person hears or is listened by the other person or the receiver, the decoding happens. And once the decoding, like after the encoding, decoding happens, and then after decoding has happened, the receiver understands the meaning which the person is willing to say. Then next is the written form. In the written form of language or in the written form of the language communication, the communicator or the sender makes use of the script of the language. Script, the way in which we write, like we write Hindi in Devanagari script, or if we are trying to write Punjabi, then we must be using Gurumukhi, or in case of English, we would be using the English script. For the communication of thoughts and feelings, a person writes about it through some written mode. And for writing, we are going to use a pen or a pencil, or if we are using a board, blackboard or whiteboard, we might be using a marker or a chalk. So, and even in case of if we go with for a broader way, when we can find the written script, we can see that the print media uses big and sophisticated printing machines, and uh, the person at the receiving end understands the meaning of the communicated message or whatever thought is being expressed in written form by reading, and after reading the decoding happens. So when I as a sender is like if I'm writing something, I'm making an encoding, and the person who is reading that particular script is basically trying to decode, and then uh, after decoding the understanding happens. So this is the next form. Then in the usual classroom communication, what happens, we can just see or imagine any of the classes. A teacher, while writing on the blackboard, the teacher also makes use of some sort of language. She used to speak up, she used to explain things, and while making this explanation, the teacher used to draw some diagram or write some words or some sort of terminologies or like all those uh, concepts which the teacher is being is being taught and the teacher is trying to explain. So the uh, in this particular method, the exposition of the written content as well the uh, the oral conversation is both are happening at the same time. So in this way, the oral form combined with written form of communication or vice versa always proves more effective than any of these forms if used separately. So it can be said that if we are using both the forms, mixing the oral and written communication at the same time in a classroom, that will be the best way of communicating the whatever we are trying to explain as a teacher. Let us now come to the non-verbal communication. What exactly the non-verbal communication means? The communication process can also be carried out without the use of any verbal means. In many cases, like if we see that um, like when we are communicating with somebody who is not able to hear, or somebody who is not in a position to see, or a person who is mentally retarded, or the person who is not uh, in a normal case, when a person is not knowing the language of the sender, or if I am speaking in Hindi and in front of me there is a person who is not knowing Hindi, a Tamil speaking person is in front of me, obviously the person will not in a position to understand whatever I am saying. So here in this particular case, when we are interacting to such an audience, we require some sort of coding or some sort of symbolic expression, coded symbolic expressions, where we can transfer the message to the receiver, but because of this language bias, this language barrier, basically not bias, basically language barrier, we have to communicate whatever we are trying to say without the use of written or oral language. So it may become a necessity as well as compulsion to make use of the non-verbal communication when this sort of situation is in front of us. So in the normal situations, uh, even while talking, we used to make certain sort of actions or gestures or mannerisms, and that is something which is the part of a human being's way of talking. This non-verbal media is generally used for giving strength and effectiveness to the verbal communication. Like right now, when I'm talking, I'm using my automatically the hands are being used. And when I'm trying to making an emphasis on a particular word, maybe I would be using a particular action, or my eye movements are also somehow more focused, or you can see that even the facial gestures are changing. So all these are the part of the non-verbal communication. So let us try to see that what are those important non-verbal communication means, or what are the most important aspects which can be seen when we are trying to understand the non-verbal communication. The first one which I wish to discuss here is the facial expression, because when we talk, the entire face is being read by the person who is watching to us, who is in front of us, and to whom the communication is being happened. So facial expression may very well communicate it, or like it can communicate our feelings, our thoughts, the state of mind in which we are in, the intentions which we are having as a communicator. So, in general, the face and the facial expressions may be said to be a true index, or a kind of mirror of a person's emotional and thinking behavior. So, when one person is talking, you can act, while watching to his or her face, you can make out that what is the intention or what state of mind this person is in. So it is very easy to identify that is the person right now in some sort of stress or anxiety, or in a happy mood, or in a sad mood. So similarly, when one is in a kind of very joyful mood, his or her facial expressions are going to reflect that this person is in a good mood, in a joyful mood. So it may also be seen that much of the language of the facial expression is almost similar and universal to all around the world. Like when we are happy, we try to smile, like our faces are smiling, or maybe we are laughing, and the tone even of our voice changes. So that is something which can be seen whenever you go to some place. You can find a person who is smiling, so you can say without any guess that okay, this person is happy at the moment. It's something which is generalized. So this is a very universal activity which you can find in humans. So seeing the facial expression, we can easily conclude that a person is angry, or uh, is jealous of something, or a person is surprised or astonished, or maybe in fear, or if showing love or affection, sympathy, or hatred. Any type of emotion can be followed once you see somebody's face while making any type of communication, or even the person is not speaking up, and then also you can see to the face, and you can make out that what exactly is the state of mind of this person. So in this way, the facial expression may be termed as one of the important modes of non-verbal communication. It is a very, very important type of non-verbal expression. The next is the language of the eye. You might be thinking of that, how it is important. It is very important. So language of the eye may be considered an another important mode of non-verbal communication. And we can say that like somebody is, if somebody is being told that you have got speaking eyes, so it is a kind of praise for him or her. So eyes are in fact uh, like they can very easily convey that what exactly is the intention of that particular communication by the person who is getting the communication done, or the sender. So language of the eye may also be considered as common and universal to almost all the cultures and societies of the world. Somehow it can also generalize that if we are making our eyes smaller or maybe widened eyes, they are all having some sort of meanings which are universal for all the cultures around the world. So the language of the eye movements is somewhat so universal and familiar that it is very easy and simple to decode the feelings, thoughts, and intentions which are being conveyed by the communicator. So let us see that how, like few of those examples. When one turns his or her eyes, we can conclude that this person is not interested in our friendship or maybe in the conversation which is happening, and the person is willing to avoid avoid the conversation. Similarly, if one person is like communicating well, and the emotions of fear or maybe any sort of anger, enjoyment, or greediness, or temptation, maybe love and affection, empathy and sympathy, or any type of emotion, invariably you can find through the eye language. It can be the other human being will be in a position to make out by the eye language that what exactly is the state of mind. Just like the face, eyes are the most important tool of showing your emotions or state of mind. So actually this eye to eye contact, this forms the very basic of effective communication. So when we are trying to communicate to our students, and if we are not making eye to eye contact, or if the student is not trying, like looking into the eyes, then we can understand that there is something which is troubling, like there is something which is troubling in the mind of my student. So when one's focus of the eyes, or this eye to eye contact while the conversation is not happening, then you can actually think of that what exactly is the problem. Or maybe if you are in between a very important conversation and you are thinking of something else, you are your mind is at some other place, at that particular time your eye movement is going to say the person who is making the conversation that you are not listening to him or her. So this is something which is very much important to get the uh, goodwill of somebody, somebody's likes or dislikes, because automatically if you are not listening to a person, the person is not going to like you. So this is also one of a very important way in which you can get the like or dislike of the person who is being at the dais or making a communication. So in the classroom communication, the necessary interaction links between the teacher and the students are mostly maintained through the relative eye language. So the eye movements of the teacher may encourage or discourage a student in a giving, like if you the student is giving a response and you are your eyes are not showing him that you are liking the response which he or she is giving, then there is a possibility that this student is going to get discouraged, and at the second time when you ask some question, she or he is not going to participate or in that, or not going to give the answer or not participate in the activity of teaching learning in an active way. So this eye reading happens, or the eye movements can be read by the students here for of their teacher. And even for the teacher can understand or read the eye movements of the students. She can make out that what is exactly is the mood of a child or or a student by seeing her or his eyes. So this is again a very important tool which can be seen as a very effective means to understand the classroom environment for a teacher. The next is the body language. Our body language has a very impressive and effective language for communicating our feelings, our emotions, our thoughts, and even our actions. Like in case of a classical dancer, while making a performance, a dance performance on the stage, she might provide some sort of substantial proof of the effectiveness of the body movement. And such communication, though, is going to use a lot of gestures, postures, and movements of the dancer's body parts. And by seeing this particular body language, if you are in the audience, you can make a conclusion. You can actually conclude that how good the dance is. And now she's like what exactly she's trying to do by the dance moves. You can make out that right now she is in the this move is showing that she is doing a prayer, or she is making the gesture which is related to an animal figure, or maybe she is also showing some sort of love or affection or anxious behavior. So different mudras or moves can be in it, like without saying anything, this dancer can express that what particular emotion she is trying to convey. So here you can see that the body language, although it seems to be somewhat universal and common, but it has a perfect cultural and social kind of base. Some body language in one culture can be having some other meaning, and in another culture or in another place, a different part of the country, or in the different part of the world, we might see that that particular body language would be having some other meaning, some different meaning. So as a result, every culture or society has its own body language, which can be learned the same way as a spoken language is learned. So if there is a the meaning of folding your hands is for making the namaste, or for greeting somebody, maybe in one culture or in one religion that is being used, but maybe in another religion or in another culture that is not the symbol or not the body language which is being used. So in this way, we have to learn, we have to actually acquire uh, those body language knowledge, as we have to acquire the language, the spoken language. And in this way, we can be quite cautious while making the use of interpreting or making any kind of body language for the for making any communication. We have to see that what exactly is the meaning of that particular body language in that particular society, and then only we can go ahead for using that body language in for communicating what we are willing to communicate. So happiness, sadness, or maybe love, affection, or the feelings of sympathy, empathy, like all those things can be can be shown through various actions and movements. And the body language can be very effectively used by the teachers and the students in the classroom for the healthy classroom interaction in almost all types of teaching learning situations. The teachers may add colors and effectiveness to their explanations, to different type of expositions and demonstration skills with the use of appropriate body language. So we can say that, like, even once the teacher is inside the classroom and uh, she's walking throughout the class and trying to see that all the students, even sitting at the back, are also attentive and showing interest, like taking interest to the classroom process, and she's actually making an effort to see that whether the students are in in the proper mindset of learning. So this is somehow the classroom process which is getting affected here by the body language of a teacher. So it is again a very important aspect of the non-verbal communication, especially for the teachers. Next is the sound symbols. There are many sound symbols and vocal cues which also provide an effective medium for the desired communication. Let's take the example when we are saying or narrating or explaining something to somebody, and the person to whom uh, we are narrating is responding simply by making a sound, hmm, hmm. It may work well for maintaining the chain of communication. So that nodding with a particular sound is going to give you the cue or uh, the like a proper understanding that the other person is listening to you, is receiving the message. So this okay, hmm, this type of nodding or making sounds is some sort of symbolic representation or sound symbols. We may like properly visualize that if a person is paying attention and agreeing to the message communication which is being told or communicated to him or her, uh, that particular sound of who is very important. And in contrary, when the listener is uttering some sort of negative sound, like "Mhm, mhm," that type of sound may be considered that this sound is basically made when the person is not showing his or her agreement. The receiver is not basically showing his or her agreement to what exactly is being said. So this means that the person is not taking interest. The person is disinterested or in disagreement to the conveyed message. So it becomes more distinctive and prominent when the person also nods his head and neck along with the utterance of the negative sound. So if I'm saying, hmm, hmm. So what I exactly am doing? But I'm doing some sort of action which is trying to show that I'm not uh, in agreement with whatever is being told to me. Similarly, the utterance of the sound, mm, okay, mm. So this is with the nod of this type of nod when I'm shaking uh, my face in this way and making hmm. What exactly I'm trying to convey? That yes, I am in agreement with you. So this is because it is accompanied with the tuning of the neck and twisting of the nose. It is also being provided like this is trying to provide a kind of signal of this particular sender to the receiver or receiver to the sender that this person who is in front of me is in agreement with whatever I am trying to say. So this is somehow how the sound symbols work, and there are innumerable number of sound symbols which we normally use in our daily life. In addition to playing the role of a mediator or reinforcer in conversation, these sound symbols or vocal cues may effectively act as potent carrier and conveyors of a person's thoughts and actions. We can take an example when a person is making a pleasant sound through whistling or humming. We may know that this person is in a pleasant and happy kind of mood, and when the person utters with anger, like hmm, and the person's face is like showing some gestures which is in showing the angry face, or the tone is also basically giving some sort of cue that this person is not in a good mood and maybe he or she can fight. So the interpretation of the sound symbols can only be made in context to the tone, to the volume, and the situation which is prevailing at the time of the utterance of those sounds. So this whistling may be made to tease or to attract, or for making some sort of incident, to remark, making a remark to somebody, or maybe if we are trying to praise somebody, like we are in a club or in a like a program is happening, and the dance performance is too good, so we at times make a whistle to motivate the performer. So we can say that one particular sound can have various meanings. So it depends on the tone, the volume, the situation, and also the mood of the communicator. So this was the sound symbols. The next is the symbolic code language. What exactly it means? Many times, some special code language can also be used as an effective mode for the desired communication. The special code language, which is prepared through the help of various gestures, postures, and body movements, can be used for communicating with a person who is having like hearing impairment, or maybe a person who is not able to understand the languages which are, or not able to hear. So, or maybe a person who is not knowing that language. So here you may see that like you can actually make a judgment that what will be the most effective way of communication in that particular situation. You must have seen that news telecast, which is for the mute and deaf people. So one can also mix the vocal cues and sound symbols with the body language for having a code language. So there is a particular code which can be prepared to showcase a particular word. So we are making certain movements by our hands, like in case of sign language. If we are trying to say a word, there is a particular sign for it. So here we can say that it is because this sign language is commonly shared and it should be understood by everybody. So there should be a universal meaning to it, and every user would be in a position to understand. So that is why the users who are either the senders or the receivers, they are free to invent any set of code language which can be used by any type of verbal and non-verbal symbols commonly shared uh, among these people. But in case of a sign language, when we are talking about a sign language, then the coding of that particular language is very much, it is typical, and it is very kind of formal. So that is not going to change throughout the world. But in case of, like, if we are talking and if we are making certain actions, or we are using some sort of symbolic some symbols we are trying to make through our hand, or through our eyes, or maybe we are trying to make some sort of indication that can change according to the understanding of one person and the other. In our day-to-day life, we must have heard some like children and youngsters often they go for like when once they are playing, they use different type of code languages, and at times for elders or those who are not the part of that group are not able to understand or sense that what they are trying to convey, but the group within the group, because the meaning of that particular code is understood by the group, so they will be in a position to make out that what is being said or what is the meaning of that particular sound which is being made by the member of, like by one of the members of the group. So here we can see that how important this symbolic code language is. Even in case of the formal organizations like the army or the military or any such type of organization, these type of code words or code sounds and code actions are being used for making the communications because of the secrecy of the messages. And similarly, various types of well thought and organized code languages are very effectively used in exchanging very meaningful and secret information by the detective and security agencies who are operating throughout the world. So, in this way, any commonly shared code language may prove to be an effective mode for the desired communication between the shared group of members. So that is why it is also considered to be a very sound kind of symbol, means of non-verbal communication, uh, which can happen uh, during a communication between groups or individuals. So now let us summarize what we have studied today. We saw that communication can be categorized into various types in view of the different criteria adopted for this purpose, like for the categorization purpose, and in view of the media and channels which are utilized for communication, we can say that there are uh, verbal and non-verbal communications. Then we can also say that there are natural and mechanical communication. And from the viewpoints of the persons involved and the situations prevailed at the time of communication, it may be categorized as one-to-one communication, small group communication, large group or public communication, organizational or institutional communication, and mass communication. We've also emphasized a lot on the classroom practices in the classroom situations, how the communication, which may be verbal or non-verbal, or maybe in different forms of non-verbal communication or verbal communication, how they make an effort for making this classroom teaching and learning process very much effective and impressive. So this was all about today's session, and I hope that the topic which is discussed today is comprehended to you all, and I hope that maybe in another sessions and another topics of the same major area of communication, you will be comprehending more about the aspects of communication. So for today, this was all. These are few of those references and suggested links which were used while making or developing this particular lecture. You can also go ahead and read more. And this is all for today. Let us see each other in another session another time. Thank you so much. Dear learners, you were watching a video on communication and interaction, and in this lecture, we discussed on the types of communication. This video lecture was recorded by faculty at home during the homebound situation of COVID-19 pandemic using minimal technical resources. Technical errors, if any, are unintentional and may please be ignored. For any queries with regard to this lecture or broadcast, kindly send your email to techsupport@dth.ac.in. Thank you so much.